And interestingly enough, it was developed here in Athens, Georgia. Company there. Wait just a minute. Now, Dale Animal Health in Athens, Georgia developed the vaccine, and it has a conditional licensing from the government already. So it will be available for purchase later this year. It'll probably be 6 months or so. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about it and how it's used and what it does, and a little bit more about American foul brood. The vaccine works interestingly. You feed the vaccine to the queen. That can be done in two ways. It can either be done in the royal jelly that she eats, or she will actually eat a candy stick that's impregnated with the vaccine as well. And that's all it takes. Then her eggs, when she lays her eggs in the comb after taking the vaccine is present in the eggs, and the larvae are then protected by the vaccine. And so the more eggs she lays, the more protection. All of those bees then are immune to American foul brood. So it's a great development. And I have no idea what it costs. There's no information out on that yet, but whatever it is, it'll be worth it. I had an encounter with it years and years ago, and trust me, you don't want that. It's kind of difficult if you've never seen it before to really know what it is and how it acts. I'm going to try to show you a little bit about that tonight. Let me keep up with my time. And that's the other thing too, because the process that they've used to develop this vaccine is new and different. And they're hoping that this same technique will be available for them to develop other vaccines for other diseases. And it's really crucial because we're losing pollinators like crazy. A lot of folks are sustaining 40 and 50% losses in their bees, and that's annually 40 to 50%. So you've got to raise all new bees every year. Back in 1940, there were approximately 6 million beehives in the United States. 2 years ago, there were 3 million. And so that gives you a kind of a what's going on, and it's not pretty. That is a sunken cell capping that has American foul brood. I don't know if you can make it out in that picture, but it's actually sunken, and there's some other keys that I'll show you as we go. That's a healthy cell there. You see the color? And you notice this is dark. There's dark areas in it. When you go into your beehive and you go into the frames, white is good. So if you're seeing white larvae, you're seeing white new wax, any of the white light-colored stuff is good. Brown is bad. American foul brood is brown, and it gets to be a dark brown, and everything it infects becomes dark brown as well. This is called roping, and I'll explain to you what that is. If you suspect that you may have American foul brood because you've looked at the frame's got the sunken, shiny cell capping, maybe it has a few little holes in it where it's been chewed, and it's darker color, you're thinking, well, wow, maybe I do have American foul brood starting up. So you pick a larva, you take a stick, you stick it in the cell, and you stir that larva up. And that's what that is. That's after the larva has been stirred up. Then you pull the stick that you used out slowly, and if it ropes, in other words, if it extends like that, that's American foul brood. And that is, there's no question that is what it is. That's the only case in which roping will occur, is if it has American foul brood. That's one of the holes I was talking to you about. That's a foul brood cell. And you see the hole there? You'll also have a spotty brood pattern. Now, spotty brood pattern is not necessarily unusual. Lots of times you'll pull a frame out and it'll have a spotty brood pattern and you think, oh my God, what's going on with my queen? But nothing's wrong with it, nothing's wrong with your queen, because the pattern that she's laid, those have hatched and gone about their merry way, and now she's relaying in there and creating that spotty brood pattern. But still, spotty brood pattern is a indicator of American foul brood. That's a symptom. Now that's a healthy precursor. In other words, if you take the cap off the cell, your larva should look like that. You see what color it is? And that's important. This one has American foul brood. It's a coffee-looking color. It's turning brown, and it will eventually turn a dark brown, and it will kind of dissipate into this piece of junk on the side of the cell. There's another key. This pupal scale with tongue, that is the larva there, and that's its tongue sticking out. And that tongue is actually stuck to the other side of the cell. And that always happens with American foul brood. Anytime you see that, anytime you see a larva, this tongue is extended and stuck to the other side of the cell, that's American foul brood. It is not European foul brood, it's not anything else, it's American foul brood. That's a dead giveaway when you see that. Again, this is the same thing. And you see the color? That off-color, coffee color to that larva? It should be white. And this is a better look at a frame. Sorry about the thumb in there. At least the nail was trimmed. There it is. That's the American foul brood. These two cells here are also, you see the hole here and here where it's been chewed on. That's another symptom or indicator of American foul brood. You won't see that in normal cells.
Oh, God.
This, up to now, was the only treatment for American foul brood. You burn it. And when I say you burn the tools and everything, anything that made contact with that hive, you burn. You burn the boxes, you burn the lids, all the frames, everything. But now today, with this new vaccine that's been developed, we shouldn't have to see any more of this. Once it gets distributed and we get it in play, then it should be a thing of the past. It's probably the worst disease that you can get in a honeybee colony. Interestingly, American foul brood does not affect adult bees, but it kills all the larvae. So you don't have adult bees after the adult bees that you've got are gone, because that just stops production right there by affecting all the larvae. And it doesn't affect 80 or 90% of the larvae, it affects 100%. Total wipeout. And then the next thing you know, your neighbor's got bees, he's got American foul brood, and his neighbor. And that's the problem with it, and that's why it's so devastating. And that's why it's actually a law that you must burn the hive and everything that contacted it. In Alabama, they have an inspection program. They have state inspectors. We have one or two here in Georgia, and we got the same rules and regulations that they do in Alabama, but we don't enforce them here. Alabama enforces them. Every year, you have to register your hives, and a state inspector will come and they will inspect your hives. And that's the primary reason they come, is they're looking for American foul brood. And they do find it from time to time. And when they do, that's what they do. Right then and there on the spot. And you don't have a choice. It's automatic and it's called for by law. I think that's all I've got on that. Any questions or anything that I can attempt to answer?
Is this a bacterial infection or a viral infection?
It's bacterial.
Bacterial.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Is one treatment to the queen enough, or do we know
Yes.
that yet?
As far as I know, yes.
Okay.
Once they do that, I'm sure it is, because all of their test work, they use an apiary to do all of their test and field work here in Georgia. Had 800 queens, and it was a one-time treatment for all of the queens. And Keith de la Plaine provided the apiary and the grounds and everything for testing, so he'd get his name in there.
Well, John, after the treatment is available, how long do you think it would be before, here in the state of Georgia, it would be completely eradicated? Because not everybody's going to use it.
No, it's going to take several years. You know, it'll be a slowly evolving thing that will ramp up, you know, as it spreads and more people do it. Interestingly, though, it's the cost, I don't think, is going to be much of a factor, because all you have to do is treat your queen. And that's the other thing, is that most of the queens that we're buying are going to come in already treated.
Wow.
You know.
John, I read that bacterial stays alive for 50 years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Your beehive has American foul brood. There is American foul brood in every beehive around, but it's like it's dormant, and it's just such a small amount that it's not a problem. But it's there, and once it gets started, ignited, whatever it gets, then it's Katie bar the door.
Have they stated how we're going to use that vaccine in the hive? Is it going to be something that has to be heated up and hemmed in, or how?
No, the queen actually eats it. They actually use royal jelly, and they put the vaccine goes into royal jelly, and then the queen eats it. And the other method is they actually make a small candy that they feed the queen. The queen will eat the candy too.
So it's actually fed into the queen to effectively do what you got.
So you have to cage the queen then, basically.
Yes.
Cage the queen.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's the nice part about it, is that all the queens we're going to be buying are going to be already treated. You know, so you and I are not going to have to worry about getting royal jelly and doing all the stuff about vaccinating the queen.
So if we buy a vaccinated queen, and then the hive decides to requeen, and that queen lays the egg, does that then make that queen a vaccinated queen, so she would carry that through, or do
No.
you have to vaccinate that queen?
Yeah, you have to vaccinate that queen, I think. I haven't really read anything or heard anything about that particular question.
That would be interesting, because she would lay a vaccinated egg.
That's correct.
The queen farm.
Yeah, she's laying a vaccinated. She has a vaccinated egg.
Would they could transfer over? That
You'd think so.
would be the question.
You'd think so. Yeah. I would assume. You know, but I can't say one way or the other.
Maybe these folks are smart enough to come up with something for the rolling out.
There you go. There you go. Well, I mean, I think this is really incredible. This was totally out of the box thinking, because they never thought they could do this because bees don't have antibodies. You know, they don't exist in insects. And so they didn't think that this kind of thing would work. But lo and behold, guess what?
Do you know what the components of the vaccine are? Like we use oxalic acid for the.
No, I don't know the components, and they ain't gonna tell me.
Yeah, you know, baking soda and cornstarch from your kitchen or something. But I didn't know if they didn't.
I have no idea.
Not necessarily the combination, but.
Where did you say it was developed at?
Athens, Georgia.
Athens?
Mm-hmm. Let me scroll back here and give you the name of the.
But probably Google it and give a little more information, probably.
Dayland Animal Health in Athens, Georgia. And there's another company that's named, the name is similar to that, that's part of their organization that has the license to do it.
Does it affect the life expectancy of queen? Is she gonna develop a heart murmur?
Have no idea.
No idea yet.
No.
I like it. Good question.
To call the meeting to order, West Georgia Beekeepers Association. First, we want to acknowledge our guests. John, if you can.
I can do that. Lee.
Mr.
I'm gonna
Lee
have, that's all I got here is Lee.
is over there. Mr. Lee is in the corner. Welcome.
Wave your hand. Oh,
Okay.
oh, you way over there. Okay. Can you hear me? Glad to have you with us tonight. Hope you think about joining the program. And then Sid Phillips. Sid, welcome. Glad to have you. Patrick Keys. Patrick. Is this Maddie Winstead?
Yes.
Maddie, pleasure to have you. Any of you guys, you got bees?
They're on their way.
Good, good, okay. The timing is just right if they're on their way. Jessica Tyson, good to have you too. Your bees on the way also?
I'm going into my third year.
I'm sorry?
I'm going into my third year.
Awesome.
Oh, okay.
A newbie.
Katie Smith. Katie, good to have
I'm
you.
the godmother of their bees.
So you're loaning yourself out. Pleasure to have you. Petra, we haven't seen you in a long time.
Hey, you're here again.
Good to have you.
Welcome back.
She's no longer a guest, she actually joins.
Yeah, but she's on my sheet.
I've been joined, but not so, not recently.
Mark and Desi Winstead. Good to have you folks. Yeah, bees?
We don't, really Maddie, she's got bees on the way.
Oh, okay, okay. I got bees on the way too. Glad to have all of you with us and hope you consider joining our community. And we do love our honeybees. And we have mentoring available for you if you decide to join. And someone is always willing and able to come look at your hives, to help you with them, give you any information or advice that they can. That's mine.
All right, thank you, John. Okay, everyone should have received a copy of the minutes from a couple of months ago.
Yeah, November actually since.
The November minutes, and I'll entertain a motion on the minutes.
I'll make a motion.
Kristen? I'll second.
Kristen made the motion, Sarah second. Any questions? Seconds? Excuse me. Questions? We already had the second round. Sarah second. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
That motion passed.
Motion passed.
Okay. I'd like to introduce our new board members. We have two new board members that joined us for 3-year terms. Brad Peterson is one of them, volunteer. And the other one is Andre Day. He's not present tonight.
But Andre, welcome aboard.
Okay. And now I turn it over to the secretary.
So everybody knows the theme for this month and next month is Bring a Friend. And we have 9 new friends here tonight, and there's a contest. You guys didn't know. The folks that invited you, the members that invited you, the person that brings the most guests will win a prize in March.
Just go ahead and give it to Charles.
Or Philip.
Kristen actually invited 5 people. We got 1 here, her other 4 come. So we're gonna just remember next month, bring more guest members because we wanna give somebody a prize. My other things are, we're gonna have a lot of volunteer opportunities coming up. I have the date of February 7th and I have to get with Russ to get some of the other dates in, but I'm gonna update our Sign Up Genius and send it out in a few days. So if folks ready to volunteer, we have a few from a few of the local schools that are looking to have people come out. I guess there's one for a STEM program and different things where they'd like to have folks come out and talk to the children about beekeeping. We received a grant in the amount of $1,061 from GBA to cover the cost of our banners, chairs, coolers, and a literature rack that'll be used so when we go and set up at different events, we can look all fancy. So we already do have the banner, so this is kind of just giving us back the money for ordering it. We did have a board meeting on February 11th, but someone forgot to bring the notes, so I'm not going to. Sarah will be giving the treasurer's report.
Right. In December, we brought in a good bit of money. We got $2,472, most of which was that $1,100.
That's okay.
Yeah, that's okay. That's all right. We weren't really all that active.
You can do whatever.
We started with 52 cents. We brought in some money from 2000 something, 1,311. We had, this was showing some, well, let me look this better, sorry. Sorry, I'm ill prepared. Yep. We paid out, we had to pay out some of the quarterly prizes from last year. The people that won it finally got around to getting their prize, and so we paid that out. We had to pay for the post office box again. We paid for some raffle prizes, and we also paid, we reimbursed Sheldon for purchasing, I guess it's this stuff.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the projector and so forth. So anyway, we ended up the year, we have $5,896.60 in the bank, and we have $50 that we keep in cash for change purposes. So we have a few people have joined for 23, paid their dues for 23. We've got 25 people that are lifetime members.
Nice.
Right. And so we've gotten about 10 or 12 individuals, and about 6 or 8 families have joined. So if you haven't paid your dues, you can do that anytime. You can pay. You can do Zelle if you want to. Oh, I've been hearing some bad things about Zelle lately. But anyway, and that's about it. Questions? So we're looking good, and we're going to be getting some more grants from the state. Those honeybee tags are a godsend. They really are. So I don't know what other clubs have been getting, but in last year we got. Hold on. We got $1,370 from that's free money. So, and
We'll keep on finding things to order and think about.
yeah, we just have to spend it on things that advance education, which can be speaker fees, it can be equipment for our meetings, it can be all kinds of things. So.
And I don't know if anyone noticed our new fancy drop-down screen.
Thanks to Mark, Russ, and Brad had that put up the other day.
Anyway, that's it for me.
Okay, go on.
Oh, okay. Everyone knows February 11th is our adult short course. It's going to take place here. If you are interested in signing up, we do have it on the website as well as on our Facebook page, and I do have some forms here if anyone's interested in signing up today. It's an all-day course. We have a lot of wonderful folks coming in to, it's like an introduction to beekeeping. Breakfast and lunch is included, and you'll also get the book,
First Lessons in Beekeeping.
First Lessons in Beekeeping, one per family. So definitely, if you have not signed up, you can do so by check, by cash, by Zelle. It's $60 for individual, $65 for family, and if you're a member, it's $25. So, and if you pay for it for the course, it gives you a year's membership if you're not already a member. But if you're a member, it's $25.
It's a real learning experience, especially for relatively new beekeepers. And I highly recommend that if you're a new beekeeper in your first 5 years, I would definitely want to attend the bee school. You'll learn a lot. And really the coup de grace is that the second day of the bee school is in an apiary with hands-on, where you're going to do your own hive inspections with guidance from one of the master beekeepers.
So it's really cool. How many, I know a lot of you have already been to any classes. How many of you have attended bee school? Okay. So the other hands, I want to see up there.
I've actually attended several times.
Yeah. This will be, I think, my third time going, so I feel like I'm professional. So we have the new equipment update.
You want to talk about Pigeon Mountain?
Sure, okay. So this is a really great opportunity just for bee club associations that we can get from now through December. If you enter your bee affiliation at the checkout and you're ordering something from Pigeon Mountain Trading, we will actually get a rebate at the end of the year. So I don't know how many people have started ordering, but this is the time actually to start ordering any supplies that you need. So just the thought, Pigeon Mountain is a great company that you might want to order from, because by doing so, they'll give a percentage back. For 3% of the sales that you purchase will come back to the club in the form of a rebate. So this is really, really cool. And we had something about new equipment. Oh, did I run my mouth already about the new equipment update?
And the projector.
Yes, projector. I didn't mention that. We have a fancy new projector as well. So we've got a projector. We've got the screen.
Two screens.
Two screens. This one is the permanent screen, and then we have a smaller.
A portable one when
Portable.
we go out. Damon?
Let me mention this about Pigeon Mountain. Most of the suppliers now have gone to $150 or $200 for free shipping. The last order I got from these guys were $100 free shipping.
Nice.
And it was very expedient. It was right on time.
Guys on time. That's good to know. Good to know. Cool.
Yeah.
So that's all I have. And I think you have the new business things.
Okay, yes. Okay, it wouldn't be a new year if I didn't start it off by asking for volunteers. We have got to do an audit. We need an audit committee, 2 or 3 people. Sarah keep the book so well, it'd probably take every bit of 10 minutes to go through it and get it done. So it's not a long volunteer stint. But it's other volunteer events that if you really want to give some time, you can do that. So I'll accept anyone now volunteer for the audit committee. You hadn't all that raise your hand the same. You can wink your eye at me. I know what you do. Anything you want to do, we need to get it. We need to get it done.
We'll do it.
Okay, Debbie and Mark.
Debbie and Mark.
Thank you so much.
It's like my 4th time.
Yeah. Okay. Last year we had Brett Singlish come in, and y'all probably may not remember. He was talking about bee removals, taking when you're doing cutouts in houses, and it was asked about the certification. And back then it wasn't one. Now they have a certification, and that should be on the website.
It's on the website.
It should be on the website about how to get certified for bee removal. I think we had some questions, big questions about that. But that certification is out there. Also, on the 4th of February, Alabama Beekeepers Association will hold their annual symposium. It's a one-day event. And Georgia State Conference is the 17th and 18th of February in Macon. You can go to their website and see, get all the particulars on that. And now I really can't do it. It's time for a song and dance, but I'm not going to do that. Our speaker has not yet arrived, but I'm pretty sure Bob Benny's on the way. So you won't get the dance from me tonight. But if anybody want to come up and share a step until he arrives, that'd be great. But he's a great speaker, and he's, what?
We could do the, he has the prizes
forgot.
from December, so we could actually do that
Yes.
to fill up some
The
time.
Christmas party was gifts that were won. Brandy, can you address that?
Ms. Colette, do you have the name?
Pull it up for you.
Yes, like bingo. We have 4 winners for bingo games. We have 3, I guess you could say regular winners, and then 1 grand prize winner. So got the prizes. So I they're on my email, but I don't.
Things we can talk about, I thought perhaps go through the calendar for our region here, what's going on from a honeybee viewpoint. And we can talk about, especially here by January, February, March, April, which is really the key time for honeybees with respect to honey production, this sort of thing. So we'll kind of go through this. Jump in any time with any questions that you have, especially with regard to the calendar. Now, we produced this calendar here. It's a West Georgia Beekeepers calendar, and it is pointedly for our area. But you got to remember now that between the north part of Douglasville up in Paulding County and the south part of Douglasville, there's probably a 2-week difference in the time that something blooms. It'll bloom a little earlier down here than it will over in Paulding County. So you got to factor that in as to where you are and where your bees are located. Nectar flows. There we go. I can't work this one. There it is. All right. January, red maple. I was just asking Keith and Charles if they've seen any red maple blooming yet. I have not. From my place, from the area that I've been in and the traveling that I've been doing, I've not seen any red maple yet. Charles has, as they're getting some pollen off of it. Keith?
They're bringing pollen,
But no network. Yeah.
mainly dandelions and other ornamental stuff.
Yeah. But now, this is a busy time for your queen. Queen should be laying prolifically, you hope. She's got to build the inventory up, get the number of bees up, build the hive up for the honey flow, for the nectar flow that's coming. This is kind of the nectar flow that we get here. February, redbud and maple. March, blueberries, redbud, canola, dandelion, wild mustard. You can kind of read through it for yourself. Does everybody have a copy of this calendar?
I think it's on the website.
Yes, that's what I was going to tell you. It's on the website, and you can go there, get it. You can download it, print it. But it's a really good idea. You kind of go through it and make yourself aware of what's going on with the honeybees. What resources do we have? And you can look at this and go through it. It's through all the months, and you'll notice November and December is a dearth. There ain't nothing. Although my bees bring pollen in every month of the year. I've yet to see a month that they didn't bring pollen in. January. Queen's in the middle of the cluster and there's little activity. Very few, if any, drones are present. The bees begin to forage. Well, I'll take a little bit of exception with that because the queen is getting busy, and depending on the temperature and the weather, it is like it was today. Now, I had bees flying today. Anybody else? You know, probably hit 70 degrees today, something like that.
Almost.
Yeah, and that's great. That's great for the bees. You know, they're out and about and they're probably scouting, trying to find stuff. Hive inspections is something that that you definitely want to think about this time of year. Today would have been a good day for a hive inspection. I don't like to open up and inspect the hive unless it's up above 60 degrees. You know, and if it's that cold, at 60 degrees, I don't like to pull the frames out. You know, I don't want to chill the brood, whatever brood there is there. And that's the danger that you run into. This is the beekeeper part of January. Feed them. Absolutely feed them. The one thing, if you do a hive inspection, look at your stores. How much food is there in that hive? More bees starve in March than probably any other month of the year because they've consumed everything that they stored from last year that you didn't rob, and that's what they've got to live on. So provide supplemental feed for them. Give them sugar. Sugar water may not be too good of an idea, especially when it's getting cold. If that water temperature is down in the 50s, below 57 degrees, then the bees are not going to take it. You know, that's when you want to go ahead and feed solid sugar. If you need bees, you should be ordering your packages. Nukes, depending on what you want. Anybody have any orders yet for packages or nukes? You ordered nuke?
I ordered 2 nukes and 2 packages.
Super. Okay. You want to get those in and build them up as fast as you can so that they're ready when the nectar flow starts and you can then produce honey. And I quite frequently, almost every year, if I do get a package or two, I almost always am able to collect a little bit of honey from that new hive. You know, I don't do it purposefully. I don't need to. I don't need that honey, but I will take a little bit of it and just, you know, for kicks and grins. Not only that, but I want to taste it.
Yeah.
February, still in the cluster. The cluster in February will vary depending on what the weather's doing. In recent years, we've been much warmer in the spring than we have previously. And although this last winter, I think, is the toughest winter that we've had in several years. I got down to, I think, like 7 degrees at my place. And the bees don't like that. You know, not at all. Don't have any drones. Unless they kept a few over, which normally they're not going to do. And it says here that we're going to need about 25 pounds of honey or syrup just in February. Wow. This Lincoln thing. Nosema can be a problem too if it's too cold. Everybody know what nosema is? It's kind of like dysentery. When the bees fly out of the hive, you look at the front of your hive, and if it's got spots all over it, from where they've defecated, coming and going, then that's a good sign that you probably got nosema. You may want to look up nosema and see what the treatment is for it, because it's not that difficult to get rid of if you have it.
If they're doing it right in front of the hives, I mean, they're not able to hold it until they get out and they can defecate in the hive.
Yeah. And bees are not going to defecate in the hive if they can at all prevent it.
Right.
You know, but that's like having the runs. You know.
But I thought that's a normal thing that they come out for cleansing flight.
They what?
That they come out every year, every spring for cleansing flight.
Yeah, they do.
Okay, so when do I know?
They just don't make it to
if
the
it's
toilet,
normal?
is what it's saying. It's like, they don't take it out of the hive yet. They can't move it.
So it's in the hives you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Fondant is always a good idea this time of year. And, well, Dan Scales, I think, what was it, last meeting, went over fondant, how you make fondant and that sort of thing. And we have it, it's also, the recipe for it is on the website. And it's an excellent way to feed your bees. They love it, they'll eat it, and it could save your colony by feeding them fondant. The 2 deeps, I don't know if any of you are running 2 deeps. But if they are, you can swap them now in order to get your bees back to the bottom box. You know, quite often then the bees will always move up, and so your bottom box will be empty, especially if you're running 2 deeps. So you just switch them. And check for your queen. Make sure your queen's okay. It's a good time to get comb drawn out. 2, you may want to, in your supers, put frames in with wax in them that's not drawn, and build yourself an inventory of drawn comb, which you'll need when the nectar flow comes. March, that's what I was saying earlier, is probably the best time for starvation of the year. Swarms are possible. And I have had swarms in March. I've had swarms everywhere. I'm tired of watching my bees flying away over the house. And blueberries, redbuds, spring flowers, canola, dandelion, wild mustard. That's what they'll be getting this time of year. Mine are not big on blueberry for some reason. I guess they don't get that much nectar off of the blueberries, because I've got a bunch of blueberries, and the bees just don't go for those near as much as they go for everything else.
But I bet they're covered in bumblebees.
Sorry?
They're probably covered in bumblebees though.
Oh, they are.
That's what I'm doing.
Yeah, sure. The bumblebee is a good pollinator too, and especially with stuff like tomatoes. You know, honeybees don't pollinate tomatoes, but bumblebees do.
Yeah.
April, the nectar flow should be on. Mature drones should be in congregation areas. Swarming is very possible. What do you do for preparation for swarming?
Split the hives.
Split the hives. Everybody split hives?
Once. Successfully. I'm a hero.
That's an excellent way, really. And so this is the time that you can start looking at splitting your hives. And then you've got to think, if I'm going to split the hive, am I going to let them raise a queen, or do I need to buy a queen? So these are things that you've got to consider. This year, maybe, we'll be able to buy a queen that's vaccinated, in which case I'd definitely do that, quickly. If you're collecting honey, then I don't want to raise a queen, because it takes too long before that hive becomes productive. Then it takes some 39 days, 40 days, something like that, before they become productive, and that's a whole lot of nectar flow that I'm missing out on. Whereas if I've got a nice queen that I can buy, then bam, we're in production and she's making bees. So if you're going for honey, that's the way to do that. But splitting is a really good idea. And if you got too many bees, call me.
I second that.
Yeah. Watch for swarms. Watch for crowding. Don't want your bees to crowd. If they get crowded, they're going to swarm. And you'll know it. You'll know it if they're going to swarm. Man, they make a racket when they go. And it's a unique sound.
It's really neat to see.
Not a bad time to find a weak queen and pinch her. The bees will probably beat you to it there. The bees will beat you to that. If the bees suspect, they don't suspect, they know that queen is not performing up to their expectations, and they'll, right away, they'll get rid of her. But then they're going to raise another queen. But these are things that you can look for and you can see, and hopefully you can prevent. They ball the queen. Has anybody ever seen that? The reason they call it balling the queen is because they actually form a ball around that queen and suffocate her. That's how they kill her. And I have tried to take the ball of bees apart and get the queen freed. I can't do it. I couldn't do it. Those bees beat me to the punch. They were a lot quicker and hell bent for leather to get rid of that queen. So it's almost impossible to break that ball once they do that. You just write that queen off and go about your business. And this time of year, you shouldn't have to be feeding your bees. You can do a hive inspection, and that'll tell you pretty quick if you need to be feeding them or not. Most times you don't have to feed at this point. If you do, then it would be sugar water. And if you're trying to draw a comb, then you want to feed them a weak solution of sugar water, 1-to-1 or 3/4-to-1, with more water than sugar, and that's more like nectar, and that entices them to draw a comb. I'm sure you've read that in the cold months and the winter months, you should be feeding 2-to-1, 2 parts of sugar to 1 part of water for the bees, so they can store food and everything. I personally never do that. I always feed the weaker solution. We just don't get that cold here for any sustained length of time. And do you ever feed anything more than 1-to-1, Keith?
No.
It's just not needed here at all. And the closer you get the nectar, the better it is. That's what they're going to eat anyway normally.
Is that because you just don't feed syrup in the winter?
I usually don't. I usually always feed fondant in the winter.
Because our bees take 2-to-1 just fine.
Do they?
Like we fed them at least 2 or 3 gallons the last couple of weeks. They
Yeah.
take it in a day.
I just feed 1-to-1 or less, 3/4-to-1, something like that. And it's been very successful for me. And in the wintertime, I tend not to feed the water because I don't want it freezing. Years ago, before I learned the hard way, I've had the water feeder actually freeze and burst and kill bees, you know, because it was sitting on top of the hive on the inner cover, and that water just flowed right on down through the hive and froze them all. May, they're still pretty busy in May. And again, you can be ready for swarms because they're going to be coming. Some people actually don't do anything to prevent swarms. Swarming is natural for bees. That's the way they expand the colonies is in swarming. But when they do swarm, but if you're producing honey, then swarming is bad for you, and you don't want that. So splitting or taking some other procedures to prevent swarming is the way you want to go. In May, you got blackberries, red clover, tulip, poplar. The bees love tulip poplar, redbud, jasmine. Again, it's important to be doing hive inspections to know what's going on in your hive. And if you got 100 hives, you're going to be busy.
This time of year, that time of year, I'm in my hive every 5 to 6 days.
I'm sorry?
I'm in my hive every 5 to 6 days.
Yeah.
In May, at that time of year, not right now, that time of year.
Starting in March, I will.
Yeah, not this time of year, no.
Yeah, I was gonna say this time.
But there's some activity starting up, you know, this time of year. The queen is going to be productive pretty quickly. And I always key on the red maple. You know, I'm always looking for the red maple. I drive back and forth to Alabama quite frequently, probably at least once a week. And I'm always looking at the trees, you know, on the side of the road. I want to know when those red maples are blooming, you know, when that's going to occur. And you know, they do get nectar from red maple, and they make honey from red maple. I've never had red maple honey. That's the bee. They consume all of that. You know, that's what keeps them going that time of year when that starts up. June, you still got some nectar flow going on. Again, you got to worry about swarming. Harvesting the honey is stressful for the bees. Yes, it is. Small hive beetles can become a real problem. Best way to control small hive beetles, in my opinion, is to keep your hives in full sun. The longer you can get sunlight on those hives, the better it is for the honeybees, the worse it is for the small hive beetles. The honeybees can take the heat, the small hive beetles can't. And that's really about all I do for small hive beetles. I mean, I've used the traps and the oil and all of that stuff for them, but I find that if I locate them properly, and I've got good full sun, and I always turn mine so that the face of the hive is southeast, so it gets that early morning sun right on it, because I want that sucker heating up, you know, as quickly as possible. And that does a really good job of controlling small hive beetles. Blackberry blossoms are everywhere. They are, and the bees take advantage of that, you know, big time. And now, you know, your bees forage out quite a distance if they have to. They prefer to have everything within 300 or 400 feet of the hive. But if they have to, they'll go out 3 miles, you know. And that's a real problem if they're having to go out that distance, because they've got to consume a lot of honey to have the fuel to be able to do that. You know, so I'm not sure it's very rewarding, you know, when they have to travel distance like that. Harvest honey during the first week of June. I may or may not, depending on exactly what's going on, but I'll harvest it sometime during June. I have, on occasion, waited longer if it was not being very productive. I had a lot of frames that were not full and capped, you know, then I might give them an extra week or two. If I know for sure that they're still bringing in nectar, then I'll do that. Otherwise, let's go ahead and harvest it.
If they're still bringing in stuff and making honey, why is it just harvested the first week of June as opposed to the...
You don't have to. Like I said, if they're still bringing it in, and you've got frames that are not full and capped off, leave them, let it go. What you don't want is you don't want them to fill up. You know, when you open your hive up and you're looking at your top super, you take the top cover, the inner cover off. You look at that top super, and how full is it? And do you see any white wax on the top of the frames? If you do, that says you need another super on there, because that they should not be putting wax there. They're looking for another place to store nectar and make honey, and that's one thing that you've got to keep up with. You've got to keep ahead of them with that. But at the same time, you don't want to stack up a bunch of empty supers either. And the way it can be hard on the beekeeper, man, you got that right. I have a small apiary down in Holt, Florida, which is, my niece has a sheep farm there. And so we have bees down there. And you think it's miserable here when you put a bee jacket on. Try it down there in Florida. Holy cow, man, I mean, it's just instant sweat, you know. You're just drenched immediately. But they make good honey down there. And you treat for small hive beetles. I don't do it anymore. I've got a handle on the small hive beetles, and hopefully your experience will be similar. I think the traps for me were just kind of a pain in the rear end. They didn't do that good a job, you know. And I even used scented lure that the bee companies sell, the bee supply places sell, you know, to attract the small hive beetles. And just wasn't that proud of it at all.
They did a study in Florida, Ellis. They had some young kid, and they said that the beer that they used was 33 times more attractive to small hive beetle than the apple cider vinegar that some people use.
Beer.
It was, he told me what kind it was. Pardon?
It attracts me also.
But anyway, it was supposed to be much more attractive.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've never
So do you
heard
just
that.
put a
That and you
dish
can
of
enjoy a
beer?
cold one while you're
Yeah, right.
fixing your
Right.
traps up.
Right. Well, I know you can drink it through the netting on your. I don't know how I know that.
That's funny. I don't know
July,
what Florida
heat will
is.
accumulate. Water boys will be out collecting water. Always make sure that you've got a good water source for your bees. You know, they need that water. They use it for a variety of different things, and they use the water to actually cool the hive as well. They use evaporative cooling to maintain the temperature in the hive. Make sure they got a good water source. Not too late to harvest honey, well, we know that. May have to feed a little bit. That's not unusual, I do that. In July, I'll put sugar water on for the bees. If anything, I overfeed bees rather than underfeed them. I figure it doesn't hurt them if it just sits there. If they're getting nectar somewhere, and plenty of it, they're not going to bother the sugar water anyway, you know, because they much prefer the nectar. So I always try to keep it there in the warmer months. And the way I feed, I will take a medium super. I use Langstroth hives. I'll put a medium super on top with an inner cover at the bottom. I'll put the super over the inner cover. And they're square like this, and they got a 3-inch cap. And I make a wooden stand so that the cap fits down in the stand, and then I punch 9 holes with like a 16th-inch drill in that cap so that the bees can then suck that sugar water out. And I set that on the inner cover on top of the hive. And there's nothing in there except that sugar water. Now, I may have 2 or 3 gallons in there sometimes, depending on the size of the hive and everything. But that's the way I feed sugar water to them. And again,
Where do you get these jars, John? Where do you get these jars?
I order them.
Uline. You can get
I'm sorry?
from Uline, I think they have.
Uline, that's it.
Uline.
Yeah, Uline, and they're on the web, and I buy them by the case. You know, I think there's 24 of them in a case or something like that,
You've got them.
and they work real well. And it's really easy to make a stand for them.
That's a mason jar lid?
And it's bigger than a mason jar. It's 3 inches or 3.5. It's a big lid.
Yeah.
But I like that because there's more space and I can get more bees under there. And anytime you're building something like that, remember bee space. Bee space is critical. You've got to jack that thing up with a couple of rails underneath it, and those need to be usually about 1/4 of an inch to 5/16 of an inch. Needs to be just enough room for those bees to walk under it.
Mhm.
You don't want too much. If you make it a 1/2 inch, guess what happens?
No.
They make burr comb. They fill it up with burr comb. You know, so, but if you keep it down to that 1/4, 5/16 inch dimension, they won't build burr comb in it. And that's, of course, that's the theory behind the Langstroth hive anyway. You know, the Reverend Langstroth, that bee space was the key in his design for the hive. Ventilation, you can increase the ventilation. I always ventilate. And I always will offset the top, the lid, and everything, so I get good flow through ventilation on the hive. And I'll run a screen bottom board in the summer. Most of the year I put a screen bottom board anyway, but for sure in the summer I want as much ventilation and airflow as I can get. And so I'll jack that top cover up, you know, to give more airspace. Store your empty supers. Spray with BT and stack with lots of air and light into the frames. You can, or you can just clean them out, stack them up, and put, it's not moth crystals, it's, paradichlorobenzene crystals. And it don't use mothballs. That's absolutely not. Use the paradichlorobenzene. You can buy it at Walmart or about anywhere. And it works really good. If you stack a bunch of boxes up, sprinkle them with the crystals, and then I put white plastic around them, but I let them vent top and bottom, so that those fumes will penetrate in there, and I don't have any trouble with storing them that way.
What is BT?
BT,
Bacillus thuringiensis.
I can't remember the name of it.
Bacillus thuringiensis.
Say it louder.
Bacillus thuringiensis.
Bacillus thuringiensis.
Thank you.
And you can buy that.
You can buy it at Ace Hardware in a spray, because I use it in the garden.
Yeah, yeah. And you can spray your boxes and frames with a solution of BT, and that will prevent anything from getting in there and screwing them up. The moths prevents them from getting in there.
Can you spray it on the cone?
On the
Cone with spray?
Yeah, you can spray it. What you want to do then when you need them, like in the next spring you're going to need them, I always take them out and let them air out for about a week, you know, to make sure that everything is free and clear. And the bees go right back to them.
Yeah. It produces a dose. Yeah.
Robbing is always an issue, and something that you've got to be really careful with, that you don't incite robbing. And that sometimes is a problem when you're stealing the honey from the bees, especially if you open a hive up and you leave that hive open while you're doing all this stuff. Very, very likely that you're going to incite robbing, because the other stronger colonies that are around, you've got that hive opened up, they smell that honey, and guess what? Guess where they're going?
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're after the honey, and a bigger colony will overpower a smaller colony. I always keep my lid on the hive. When I harvest, takes me a while, because I will take the lid off, I'll pull a couple frames out, put the lid back on, and I got another box that I'm storing those frames in, and then I put a lid back on it. And I keep everything closed as much as possible so that I don't incite robbing. And if you do get robbing, and I've had that happen before, and I'm sure you have too, what do? How do you stop robbing?
Screen.
Close down the entrance.
Baloney, but you took like a wet towel and
Entrance
draped it over
reducer.
the hive.
Yep. Close the hive up. Close the hive up, put a wet cloth over it, let it go. You know, that's one good way to do it. But you've got to stop it. You can't let it, because they won't stop until it's done. And you'll have dead bees everywhere.
So if you put the wet sheet or towel or whatever on the top of it, do you put it over the entrance?
Over the entrance and
also?
everything, yeah.
Everything?
Yep.
For how long? I mean, until they quiet down, or
About a day.
that's it?
Yeah, I do.
Till dark.
Huh?
Till dark.
Till dark.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Never done that.
And otherwise, I mean, it's just difficult to stop robbing.
Yeah.
You know, man, they go nuts. I told you, I don't know if all of you heard of it, I had a mentee, I guess that's what you call it, a lady that I was mentoring, that I loaned my extractor to, so that she could extract honey. And I set it up in her garage and showed them, you know, how to use it, what you do, and all this sort of stuff. And I didn't talk to her for about a week. And a week later, I called her. She says, "Oh, I'm not doing bees anymore. I absolutely am not. I'm done with them." I don't know what's going on. And she said that they attacked me. I said, "What do you mean they attacked you?" She took the blinking extractor out to the beehives, outside out there, run a drop cord out, and she's got that extractor sitting there. She's opened that thing up. It's slinging honey. And guess where the bees are? she's in a cloud of bees.
Oh, God.
You know, she probably got stung 1,000 times. You know, and I'm thinking, oh my God.
You put it in the garage for a reason.
Yeah. I guess I didn't spell it out, you know. And I'm thinking, am I responsible for that? Gee, many Christmas. But she's lucky she lived through it, you know. So I'm very familiar with Robin.
No.
And they get in a frenzy.
Oh, gosh.
You know, in a real frenzy when they do that. And that many bee stings, holy crap. She's lucky to not have gone to the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
I don't blame her, I quit too.
Me too, exactly.
August, reduce your entrance, equalize your colonies. It's really important as a beekeeper, if you've got several hives, let's say you've got 6 hives. I always use the number 6 as sustainability. That 6 hives makes me sustainable from year to year. But if I got 6 hives, I carry at least 2 nukes with me. I call a nucleus hive a resource hive. And that's the way I look at that. It's a resource. So I've got 2 nukes with my 6 hives. Now, if I've got a hive that's underperforming, and you will have, you'll have strong ones and weak ones. If I've got a weak one, I'll go in and look at it. I look at the frames. I look at the brood. If it needs more brood, I go to my resource hive nuke, and I'll steal a brood from that nuke and put it in that weaker hive. And I try to keep them balanced that way. And that's what I maintain those nukes for. Also, the other thing I maintain those nukes for is I've got 2 queens. I've got a queen in each nuke. So if I lose a queen, guess where I'm going? Go to those resource hives.
And you're treating the nukes the same way as you do the other hives as far as adding supers to it and all that?
Yep. I super nukes.
Mm-hmm.
I do. But I don't let them get too big.
Yep.
You know, unless I need another hive, unless I want to develop them into a full hive.
Yep.
Most of the times I keep them bled down by stealing frames from them and putting them in weaker full hives.
Mm.
You know, and the bees will accept those with no regrets. There's no fighting, nothing. Anytime that you want to put larvae and the nurse bees that are there, and the nurse bees stay. They go with the frame. You will not have any trouble at all introducing them to another hive. You know, they're happy to have them, and they'll always take them. They'll always receive them. You know.
Yep.
They don't ever try to rob out of it.
Do what?
The big hives don't try to attack the nukes.
No. No, they don't. I don't let them either. I don't give them any kind of incentive to rob out the nukes. And this time of year, when you get to this period, I'm always reducing my entrances. And then why do you reduce the entrance? It makes it a lot easier to protect.
Robin.
You know, those bees, the bees that belong to that hive, the guard bees, can way easy protect a 1-inch opening than they can a 12-inch opening. You know, so that's the reason I always narrow that down. And to have that whole hive open, you don't need that anyway, even during the honey flow. You know, it's way more room than they need to come and go. Most times I only run 3 to 4 inches of an entrance. Yeah, August can be considered the last month to do a split. And why is that? Because that hive doesn't have sufficient time to rebound before winter and before they cluster. So you count back from that. I think I gave out the queen bee timing sheets last meeting. It shows you how long it takes for a queen to develop from the egg. And so that way you know how long it takes for that queen to develop, and then how long it takes for her to lay before she's actually making worker bees. And so you kind of count back from that, and August then probably is about as late as you want to do a split. If you do it any later than that, then make sure you've got a queen that you can put in that split, rather than have them raise one. September, population decreases. That's true. That actually, probably a little later than September, it gets even worse than that when they kick the drones out, and don't let the drones back in. They don't want to share the food. That's the reason they kick the drones out. Queen bees laying less. Robbing is always a possibility. Goldenrod, ragweed, yellowweed, aster. That's pretty much what's blooming. And you can harvest honey one more time if you need. When you harvest your honey, how much honey do you leave on your hive?
At least 50 pounds. 50 pounds.
50? I always leave at least 30 pounds of honey, which seems to be adequate. But I supplement that. I always feed fondant as well. I'll feed liquid up until the temperature drops. But then once that temperature drops, then I convert everything over to fondant. But I still want to leave that 30 pounds, at least 30 pounds of honey for the bees.
You can freeze fondant, right?
You can't what?
Can you freeze fondant? If you make it ahead of time, can you freeze?
Fondant? You don't have to.
Refrigerate.
I keep it in a 5-gallon bucket.
Oh, fondant?
Just wrap it up.
Yep.
It's not melting or anything?
Nope.
How, 3 pounds is how many frames?
Probably 5, 6. Somewhere in that range. And again, that's what October here, you're building them up for winter. Equalize your colonies, that's what we were talking about with the nukes, where you rob frames out of the nukes and put them in the colonies. Mix the syrup. You can always bulk feed if you have to. We've talked about bulk feeding before, where you actually mix up 5 gallons of syrup, or almost 5 gallons of syrup. You use 25 pounds of sugar, and get all that mixed up in a 5-gallon bucket. Put a lid on it, put 2 boards or sticks down through it so the bees have a way to get in and out, and they'll completely drain that 5-gallon bucket, And I do 1 5-gallon bucket per hive, but you put them at least 300 to 400 feet away from the hives to prevent robbing. And they look at that as a separate nectar source if it's that far away. So you don't get any robbing or anything with it.
I was gonna say, we did a bucket feed this year, and I don't know if we didn't have enough of them, but we always had a lot of dead bees. They would fight, they would be so many in there, they would push the other one out.
You need more buckets.
And
How many hives you have?
probably about 8,
How many buckets?
2 at the most.
You need 8. Need 1 bucket per hive.
About 200 pounds of sugar.
Yep. Yep. Welcome to beekeeping.
think Dan Scales mentioned this when he was here, said if you have white hives, don't use white buckets to feed.
Don't use what?
White buckets. He said if you're using a white bucket, guess what? You're training them to go to a white source to rob. To feed. So if you got white hives,
that's probably true.
use red buckets. Or
Yeah,
blue buckets.
yeah, that's probably true. All mine say Home Depot on them.
That's good.
Yeah.
But that works, and you don't have to worry about all the sugar going into solution. They'll eat the sugar that's left in there, when it gets down to that point. In your inspections, make sure you got a queen. This time of year, quite often you'll find that you don't have a queen. Something has happened. Either she absconded, you had a swarm, and the new queen didn't make it for one reason or another. So always go in and look for a queen. Make sure you got a queen. When you go into a hive, you pull the top lid off. Listen. Watch and listen. They sound different if there's no queen. It's a different sound. And if you do it enough, you'll recognize it. And you can pretty much tell when you're going through and you're not finding a queen, and there's a kind of a roar, that's a different sound. And you know you're queenless then. And at that point in time, that time of year, the only thing to do is put another queen in there. You all know how to introduce a queen, right?
Can you say it again?
Say, everybody, I'd like you to meet this queen.
I haven't done it yet.
Oh, you've not done that? Replaced a queen? That's a good experience. You need to do that. How many hives do you have?
Yeah, 5.
5? And they're all performing well for you? No swarms?
There was a couple this past summer. We got one and started the 5th one, and then another one, they left.
Okay, but they made their own queen.
I think we got the queen from the first swarm.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, introducing a queen, they come in a cage if you buy a queen. You cage all yours, don't you, Keith? When you open the hive up that you're going to put the queen in, and she's in a cage, and there's a stopper, and 2 stoppers in there normally, depending on the type of cage it is. But you want to, one of them has candy in it, and you want to pull the stopper out of the one that has the candy in it, because you want the bees to eat that candy and let the queen have room to come out, a way to get out. And you always put that caged queen kind of in the middle of the brood in your hive. So it's going to be in your bottom box, right in the middle, the best brood frame you got. Okay. You hang her there, and the bees will actually eat through that candy, and I always give them about 3 days to do that. And then I'll come back and I'll open up and I will check that, see if she's out. And if she's not out, then I will look at what's going on. If the bees are clustering on that cage, I'll take my finger and I'll just kind of push them away. Okay. If they resist, if they don't want to move away, then I close them up and I leave her there for another day. And then I come back and do the same thing. And when I put my finger on them and I move, if they move freely away from me, then they've accepted her. I know, because now they're not clinging on trying to get to her. And then I'll go ahead and release her. But normally I let the bees release the queen. And then once they release her, she's got to take her, well, that's the virgin queen. Once they release her, you need to come back in a couple of days and make sure that she's laying properly. To just do an inspection. And you've got to locate the queen. next time we do mentoring, I will give you a foolproof way of finding a queen. I've done it a couple of times, but you may not have seen it. But I'll show you a foolproof way of always finding a queen. And it's a pain in the butt, but it works. And so we'll go with that.
Philip Beavers won a special cage over there in the raffle for the queen.
Yeah, that's an introductory.
Yeah.
That's an introductory cage there. And those are nice. Those are handy. I like those. You know, the way they work.
John, here's another plus to introducing your queen that I've read about. It said if your hive has been queenless long enough and there's no brood in it at all, put a frame of brood, capped and open brood in there.
Yep.
When you put that queen in there,
Yep.
they'll automatically think, wow, she's doing a good job already, even in this cage. You know?
No, that's true.
And it's
Yep,
another
absolutely.
step to get them to accept it.
Absolutely. And that gives her a place to lay, you know, too. And that's where she's going to go. But that's good to know. Anybody else? I don't want to overstay my welcome. November is kind of a nothing month. November, December, January, for me, November is really slowing down. I'll see the bees flying, this sort of thing from time to time. I pretty much leave them on their own in November, unless I notice that something's wrong. But I don't routinely do hive inspections in November, and definitely not in December and January. There's a dearth. Nothing's available for them except pollen. There's no nectar this time of year. Some ventilation if you're still feeding. I usually tighten my hive up during this period. If I've had it opened up for ventilation, I'll close it back down. Put an entrance reducer on. But other than that, I don't take any other precautions against the cold weather. We don't get that cold here. It's not like it is in the northern part of the United States. My bees make it through with no issues as far as the cold weather is concerned.
John?
Are there other places where all year round, that there's nectar available, that the bees are all year round getting?
That's what?
Other places where, even in the winter and stuff, that the bees can come out and like the temperature is where they can come out and still go get pollen and all of that.
Hawaii.
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 Oh, okay.
And I'm sure there's other places as well.
Do you try to take it down to one box at this point?
No, I don't.
Maximum of what, two? Or does it?
I'm willy-nilly about really closing them up, and I don't get any hurry to do it. I pull off the supers and stuff like this. I don't try to get them to one box.
What would be normal, like 2, 3?
Box and a half for me. At least one super, medium super, and a deep. And I may have 2 medium supers on there and a deep, depending on how big the colony is and everything.
Okay.
But
I use 8 frames, mediums, and I usually run 3 mediums.
yeah, it's about right. It's about what I do. And you can look at infrared pictures and see in the middle of the winter, and you can see the cluster and everything. And that 3 mediums or a box and a half is about right for the cluster. December, cluster tightens up. Queen shouldn't be laying much at all. I always have some brood. I don't remember ever opening a hive up in December and not finding at least some brood. It may be a small patch, but I've always got some brood. You know, that's been my experience. In the north, I think that it changes from that. In the north, they do go broodless. But here, I don't think we do. Keith?
Some winters you'll have nothing around Christmas, New Year's, but usually you have something. The queen usually lays on, say, starting in January, on a warmer day, they cut off when it gets cold.
Yeah.
And you see brood patterns reflecting that different.
Yeah.
So, it depends on the weather.
Hope you did everything right. I do that every day. But I do not question myself. That's dangerous. The wintertime is time to make the repairs. Clean your boxes up, clean your frames up. That's woodworking time. Anyway, everybody's got a copy of this available to them if you don't already have it. And you can look through it and you take it with a grain of salt. You know, it depends on your situation totally and your bees. Anybody got any questions?
I had a questions on splits. If your goal,
I can't hear you.
I have some questions on splits. If your goal is honey production and it's looking like you're going to have swarms and you don't want to really split those colonies like in half or more, you're trying to time it just right for the flow, right? Well, can you do like temporary splits?
Sure.
Like to satisfy the colonies so they don't swarm, and then
When you do a split, you don't. When you do a split, you don't have to remove 5 frames from every box if you're running 10 frame boxes. You can take 2. You know, I've never been successful with a 1 frame split where I pull 1 frame out and put it in a nuke. I always fight that to a bitter end and never succeed. 2 I can do. I can pull 2 frames and make a successful split with that. Anything more than 2 frames is really easy. A walkaway split where you divide the thing evenly, you know, that's really easy to do. But no, you don't have to do 5. And if you want to split them and then put them back later, you can do that too.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
If you took a few from this one, a few from this one,
But if you
put
take,
all those
yeah, but if you take all those away, then you're going to need a queen with them. Then you put a queen on them, you've got another hive. You know, now if you want to put them back together, you're going to combine them, but you're going to have to do something with that extra queen. You know, the bees don't necessarily like a 2-queen hive. I've had them. I've had 2-queen hives, but they don't last forever. I've had, the longest one I think I had was like 3 months where I had 2 queens in 1 hive. But inevitably they get down to 1.
Because I mainly production. You get over 8 frames of brood in a colony. I run all these. So I can interchange. Give them space. I use 2 deeps for brood. Anything above that from the honey. And I can swap out. The main thing is anything over 8 frames you're looking at maybe a tendency to swarm. A lot of mine run anywhere from 10 to 14 frames of brood.
out of the 20.
Yeah. Okay. A lot. I wanted to peak when honey flows. You have to go through them every 5 to 7 days. Cut out any queen cells, swarm cells before they start. You want to catch them before they cap. If you wait till after they cap, they may swarm anyway. You have to be on top of it. It can be done. If you run it, I run deep on honey super. If they were, the outside frames are usually honey when they first start off. I take them, put them in the honey super, put empty frames back down. The more empty frames you have down in the brood chamber, the more likely to have
drawn or John,
Mhm.
John, right?
Yeah, you gotta remember now, Keith runs all deeps.
I run all these, but they can draw out cones. I have a lot of already drawn out cones.
That's what it's for.
A lot of my deeps are in storage right now. I got 60, 70 boxes. And I put those on there for, and I can just, because I run all deeps, I can interchange any price in any box. So it makes it a lot easier. The disadvantage of that is it's extremely heavy. And a lot of my colonies last year were 3 to 4 honeybees. So they were 6 and 7 tall. And 80 pounds of your.
Roderick, Bob Benny's done.
That's good. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Bob.
Nice job.